Hey, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Christine. I want to thank everyone who's on this call for taking time out and being on this call. I want to thank Christine for inviting me to give this talk and setting this event. And I had sent an invitation to this organization that I volunteer for called Hire Heroes. So if there are any veterans that are on the call, thank you for joining, and also thank you for your service. So the purpose of this call is to share some of my ideas that I have from coaching, from writing, from speaking, and also from my personal experience. And the title of this is How to Get a Good High-Paying Job Today. And I know that many of you, or if not all, you probably know a lot of tips and techniques on how to get a job. So I'm going to specifically focus on this part, high paying. How do you get a high paying job? And I know right now the market is really hard. And that doesn't mean that the companies are not hiring. They're going to hire you if you can show them how they're going to make money. I mean, that's basically it. Companies are not stupid. If you can show them that you can help them make money, they will hire you, and it'll be a good high-paying job. So that's the trick, and that's what this presentation is about. And one thing that I want to kind of mention is that if I have to kind of say something really tersely, what gets you a good high-paying job? And I would say it comes down to this. You really have to master complexity to deliver simplicity. Those are the people that get high-paying jobs, mastering complexity to deliver simplicity. Now, during the call, I'll go more into that. What is complexity? But in a nutshell, complexity could be a sales job, or it could be a position within a company where you're kind of, you could be like a boundary spanner where you have to work across multiple organizations to get the job done, to make sure that you're driving revenue, time to market. Or you could be in a marketing organization where you're analyzing data and using that data to tell stories that resonate with customers. Or you could be using agile method to deliver software that customers want fast. You're making changes, responding to the customer's need real fast. So you define complexity. You know what complexity is. But at the end, it has to be, what you're delivering is simplicity. And if you do that, you're going to get a good high-paying job. I mean, you just look around. You know, these people at Google and Facebook and Amazon, they make good money. And that's because they've mastered complexity and delivered simplicity. But you don't have to work for those companies. It could be any company. Everybody's going to have to do it. Because if companies out there are not mastering complexity to deliver simplicity, guess what? They're going to be Amazon. Okay, Amazon's going to gobble them, or Facebook. One of these companies are going to take over them. Okay, because companies that do that, you have to do it individually. But if a company has mastered complexity and delivers simplicity, like GoodRx, right? They've mastered complexity. You can get a prescription using GoodRx, and my brother just showed me, and I couldn't believe it. I said, "Wow, that is so simple. I can get a drugs medication that way. I can just check it and get medication." I couldn't believe it. So if you can master complexity, companies out there are mastering complexity to deliver simplicity. And for them to do that, they're counting on you to do the same. If you can show them that you have mastered complexity to deliver simplicity, they're going to hire you. Doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, what you are. That's what they need to do. All right. So my name is Jay Oza, and this is my tagline. I guide people thrive on high stakes stage. I'll get into more of this, why this is so important, in the next slide. But this is how you should lead with when you are describing who you are. Not this, I'm a writer, speaker, and executive coach. That's what I do. This is what I deliver. Okay, this is my complexity, and this is my simplicity. I'm a writer. I'm a speaker. I'm an executive coach. That's complex. But at the end, people want to know, what are you going to do for me? So I guide people thrive on high stakes stage. So think about it, because I'm going to come back to this. This is going to be very important. And you can contact me with this email. You can contact me right here. My email's right here. And I've written a book. That's right. I've written a book and I'm proud of it. And here it is. It's real. Okay. And it's interesting when you write a book and you read it, you don't even think you wrote it. And when you're writing it, you're like so immersed in it. And afterwards, like, did I actually write that book? That can't be me. Who wrote that book? Truth be told, you can write a book. Just get a good editor. So in any interaction with people, they're asking three questions, and they're not directly going to ask you these questions like, who are you? What do you have? Why should I care? But that's what they're asking in their head. And I got this from Les Brown, who's the motivational speaker. And this is exactly the three questions you have to answer when you are looking for a job. Who are you? What do you have? And why should someone care? Right? So rather than just leave it at that, this is where I'm going to go into detail. So my name is Jay Oza. I guide people thrive on high stakes stage. So my job is to make them successful. And by high stakes, in this particular situation, could be looking for a good high paying job. A stage would be looking for a good high paying job, and high stakes is either you're going to get that job or you're not going to get that job. That makes it high stakes. And the reason I am qualified to do this is because I focus this from a communication standpoint. I focus this from a communication standpoint. I've written a book. I talk about this. I write about this, and I coach people. So I have a good sense of what's working and what's not working. And I also do a lot of research and read about what other people are saying. And the reason you should care about this is because what I found is that just because you communicate well doesn't mean you're going to be successful. But the one thing that I have found is that people who are successful, normally, pretty much all of them speak really well because they communicate well. So I have this saying, time is money, communication is wealth. So that is sort of my, who are you? What do you have? And why should I care? Okay? Because communication is everything. If you want to be successful, you're going to have to communicate well. So that's sort of an example on how I would do it. Of course, you've got to keep on practicing it, but that is basically the three questions that people are going to answer. And you got to kind of walk them through this slowly. Because if you do it fast, then you're talking to yourself. So you got to do it slowly. Like, my name is Jayoza, boom, boom. Explain to them each of those keywords: thrive, high stakes, boom, stage. What stage are you talking about? And okay, big deal. So what? Who cares, right? What do you have? Like, okay, I write about the book. So that gives me the instant credibility. Because if I'm writing about speaking, writing about communication, that means then I give talks and things like that. And then why should I care? Because to succeed, you have to communicate well. Communication is absolutely important. And this applies to any stage, whether it's job, whether it's sales, or you're giving a speech in front of people. So how do you do that? And the three keys to getting a good high paying job today: you got to craft a compelling message and a narrative, right? Message and narrative. This is key. We're going to go into this in detail. So that's who you are. Who are you? You have a message and a narrative. Then what do you have? You have to show your relevant skills. But skills alone doesn't do anything unless you can show that you have ability to solve complex business problems quickly. The third thing is, you don't want people to think too hard. So you got to create a package, and that does include a message, that does include a narrative. But the main thing in packaging is there's got to be that consistency. right from the beginning till the end. There's got to be that consistency. And then once you get a job, then which is outside the scope of this, is how do you get to the next level? And some of these techniques will also come in once you get a job and you want to get ahead. So at the end, with this is three things that happen. You're showing up, you're standing out, and you're securing an offer. You show up, you stand out, and you secure an offer. And that's why you need to do to get a high paying job. And we're going to go into this in more detail. But before I do that, I want to spend a little time on mindset, because mindset is very important, as you already know. That if you don't have the right mindset, then you could be spending a lot of time and not achieving the outcome you're looking for. So I want to just briefly spend a couple of slides, few slides, just a little time on mindset. And when you go from jobs to career to purpose, these are the mindset, right? There's a job mindset, there's a career mindset, and then there's a purpose mindset. Now, I want to be frank, when you're out of a job, you tend to really want that job because you got to pay the bills, you know, you have expenses to meet. So you get into this job mindset, like, I need a job, I need a job. But one thing I want to tell you is, and this is just my observation, just to take it for, when people have a job mindset, what I find is they tend to be very defensive. And by that, I mean, they don't take a lot of chances because they're defensive. They don't want to make any mistakes. They don't push the envelope in a way. And as a result, that might suit you fine, saying, I think my interview went well. I think I did well. But that's not what the employer is looking for, because everybody else is sounding the same. And then they wonder, like, oh, I thought my interview went well, but I didn't hear from them. So I just wanted to point out that having a job mindset does put you on defense. Now, this is where my coaching try to get people out of that job mindset and saying, I've already done it. I'm here looking to add value, right? The job is not what you're focusing on. So you got to get away from the job mindset and look at it from, you know, the employer doesn't care that you don't have a job. Employer only cares how you're going to help them make money. So the question is that you have to get out of that defensive mode. What I find is that people have a career mindset. When people know that they got a job, now they want to move up, get to the next level, they get on offense. And because they have a job already, they don't really care. If they don't get it, they don't care. But they really work hard and try to get ahead, and they have this career mindset where they take risks. They know exactly, because I know people that I coach who have very good jobs, but they want to get to the next level. And the risk that they are willing to take is amazing, how much work they're willing to put in. And getting to the next level is hard. It's a lot of work, right? And what I say is that there is this three things we do, right? People who get ahead, there is this thing where you're doing, I don't know the percentages, but the chunk of the percentage is doing a good job. But also people are also spending time looking for a job. And the third thing is getting ahead. Those three have to be done at the same time. Now, percentages, you can decide depending on where you are after you join. In the beginning, if you join, like I just recently had a client who just is going to be joining this company. Right now, he's spending almost 50% of his time, 25, 30% of his time, 25, probably 30% of his time on getting ahead, getting this new job that he's looking for, right? Once he gets it, then he's going to spend time making sure that he's doing a good job. He'll probably spend 60, 70%. And then also he has to start looking to get ahead right away. These things are very strategic. You have to get very strategic when you're trying to advance in your career. And the last thing is a purpose mindset. This is where you are taking a job that gives you that balance that you're looking for, where you're not just getting in the career mindset where you're just like, you're not going to burn out, or you just want to get ahead, like, you know, but now you got there, now what? This is where you are looking for a balance where you are happy with what you're doing, you're adding value, you're making money, decent amount of money, and you feel like you are there's a purpose behind what you're doing. And that brings me to this next slide. And this is a Japanese concept called ikigai, if you have many of you might have heard of it. And what ikigai is, like this sweet spot right in the middle, when you take four circles and they intersect there, that four circles where they intersect, that sweet spot where they all intersect, that they all cross over, all intersect there. So this is what you're good at, what you can be paid for, what the world needs, what you love. So if you have this balance, you have ikigai. And at some point, we all need to start thinking about this. I know some of you are like, wait a second, why is he talking about ikigai when I don't even have a job? Well, the reason is because we're going to work pretty much till we die. That's what happens nowadays, right? People live till they're in their 80. Like my dad passed away a couple of years ago, and he was 85, and he was working a week before he died, and he was fighting cancer. People get purpose out of working. He was working. That's what made him happy. Like, I remember he was fighting cancer. At home, he would look very sick. When I would bring him to the office, the same office that I'm in right now, he would be in the same office that I'm using right now. He would look like there was nothing wrong with him. So keep that in mind, that yes, get a job right now, but at some point you have to start thinking about what's going to give you purpose. And that's why I wanted to include this slide here, that you're going to be working for a long time. So today, companies hire and pay well for two main reasons. This is what I found. It's growth and scale. Companies are there to make money, they're there to grow, and they're there to scale, right? So if you can just use these two words, growth and scale, if that's not coming up in your vocabulary when you're talking, you're not resonating. Growth means companies want to go. It could be like it could be a small company that needs to grow, or it could be an area within a big company that needs to grow. Okay, so I just want to make it clear. It doesn't have to be a small company. It could be a large company, but they're trying to grow in certain areas that they need to grow. Could be a product, could be a service that they need to grow. And then once it grows, they need to scale. Now, how do we leverage all of our advantages and scale globally, nationally, globally? Take few clients and now make it nationally, globally. And scale means usually the word global comes into the picture pretty quickly. So these are the two words that you really want to focus on when you're looking for a company. What's their growth story? Okay, what's their growth story? That's a question you should be asking. Can you tell me your growth story? Because otherwise, why would they hire? And you're not going to get paid well. So I created this slide from a Wall Street, okay? Because people always ask me, like, I'm old. Like, why would company pay me money? Like, how can I get a good job? I've been working. So I said, okay, what's the best way to explain that? So let's say you're Wall Street and they're looking at you as a stock, okay? And if you are just focusing on experience, then you're like a past performer. Nothing wrong with that. You're going to be fairly valued, right? That'll be like IBM, AT&T, GE. Now, if experience was very important, like just recently during the pandemic, a lot of these companies had to really find COBOL programmers. They were in big demand because these machines had to be modified. So if you knew COBOL, that experience made you, suddenly you went from fairly valued to probably highly valued, or maybe even ridiculously valued, because they had a specific need for COBOL programmers for at least that short time. Okay, so then, now remember, experience, I'm not here, there's no age here. There's no age here. So if you have experience, and if that's the only thing you're counting on, you're a past performer, and luck would have it that if there's a need for COBOL, suddenly you're a hot property and they're going to pay you well. But otherwise, you're going to be fairly valued, okay? But let's say you have experience and you're picking up new skills, new skills, just-in-time learning, as I like to call it, JIT learning, okay? Then you become, as I like to call it, the present day one player. you can add impact right from the start. And this is what companies like, and you'll be highly valued. And I kind of compare that to companies like Apple, Amazon, Microsoft. They have to constantly learn just-in-time learning. They need to respond to their customers' need very quickly, right? That's what they do because they have an existing product like iPhone right here. They have to come up with a new iPhone. They can't completely come up with a new product. So they have to learn some new things that they have to incorporate into this phone that would make customers go out and buy it. Like right now, 12, we hear that it's 5G, right? That's just-in-time learning. Like I like to think of it as a just-in-time learning that they added. So if you know that, then you become a highly valued person. But what if you do three things that not only you have experience you're leveraging, you can also do JIT learning, but you have a growth mindset, a growth outlook, a growth mindset. In that case, not way out there, but just like 2-3 years from here, like you can already say like, this is going to be hot a year from now, 2 years from now. Then you're going to be ridiculously valued, okay? Ridiculously valued. And companies like Snowflake, Tesla, Zoom, I mean, Tesla, it's still, electrical vehicles is still growth. There's a growth out there because of the climate change. So Tesla is going to do extremely well. They're going to be ridiculously valued because that's what people think of it. These are the companies of the future. So don't get offended if you're like, wait a second, experience only. Experience doesn't mean you have to be old. Experience means you're just banking on your experience. At that point, you're fairly valued. If you can show, and I will show you in one slide that's coming up, how would you have this discussion if you were talking about something? So there's a slide coming up where I can kind of show you exactly how you would do this. So it's experience plus just in time. I call that present day one player, and experience plus learning plus growth makes you a future growth agent. And you're going to be ridiculously valued if you're that. This is from a Wall Street point of view, okay? So now let's get to the meat of this presentation, message and narrative. Now, message and narrative are very important. People don't make them think. If you don't have a message, they don't know what to think of. And message is something you control, and narrative is something, there's an arc to that, right? Arc to the message that makes your message really, it supports your message, your narrative. So let me just give you an example. So I'll just give you an example of the message and narrative. So as I mentioned, my message is that I guide people thrive on high stakes stage. Now my narrative would be, so people would like, why would they want to know? Because that alone doesn't do it. Like, what? You make like what? Like I make, like just by itself sounds kind of like, what does that mean? So you have to have a narrative. Otherwise it doesn't stand, it stands on its own, but there has to be a narrative that girds it. That's scaffolding that narrative provides for that message to stand, right? So if I say I guide people thrive on high stakes stage, then I have to have a narrative. And I could say, look, when I first joined the workforce, a month or 2 months into a job, 3 to 3 months into a job, a couple of months into a job, my boss asked me that I had to give an engineering update to the leadership team. So I put it together, and the day of the event, he calls my name, and I can't utter a single word. I completely blanked out. Luckily, my colleague Chris, who was sitting next to me, took it and said, Jay's like, I don't know what's going on. Let me take it. I said, Jay, can I take it over? I said, yeah. And he delivered it. And what happened was that we were both good programmers, but since he could communicate better than I could, he was basically put on a promotion, he was put on a fast track for promotion. And I was going to remain a techie. And I was just going to be remaining a techie. And I didn't do much about it till one day I attended a Toastmasters meeting at Bell Labs where I was working in the early 90s, or in the 90s. And I said, wow, I need to really work on this. So I took it very seriously, and it gave me a lot of confidence such that I was able to get out of doing programming, that I transitioned from programming into sales consulting. So I would have more customer interface, and then eventually into sales. And then I developed more confidence to the point where I can say, hey, I don't need to work for a company. I can just do this on my own. So that's where I am today. I basically guide people thrive on high stakes stage. So you see what I just did? I gave you my message, I gave you my narrative, and I closed it out again with my message. So I just wanted to give you a quick example on how that would work. Okay, so how do you create your narrative and message? So let's say I'm going to take an example here, customer experience, right? That's very important. So let's say you've done that now. You're in the customer service, customer experience side of the business, and you've done this for 10 years, 10 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever. People don't know. 5 years, nobody knows what you're doing. You work hard, but you have experience, you have education, you have insight, and you could have even gotten an award. But nobody's going to know about that. That's 10 years that you're going to have to somehow distill and show people why should they care. And that could be, you could show them that what you really know about it and become like a thought leader by writing blog posts, videos, maybe posting them on LinkedIn, and to show that not only you're doing work, but you have some deep insight into what you're doing. And at some point, you're now looking to change your job. Now you have to distill all this, condense all of this into a one-page resume where you're going to have a message and you're going to have a narrative. You're going to show what kind of skills you have, what kind of problems that you're solving. And your message would be a simple one. I deliver excellent customer experience. Boom. So all these years of experience has to come down to this. I deliver excellent customer experience, because nobody's going to give you time to make you go through 10 years of experience. It's your job to create a narrative that supports this message. I deliver excellent customer experience. So I was giving a talk maybe more than a year ago, and there was a woman, she was probably in her mid-career, and she's saying, this is so hard. Like, I don't know what my message would be. So I said, well, when you were working, what kind of compliments did you must have gotten compliments. I said, yes, Jay, they would compliment me. So I said, what kind of compliments did you get? And she was in the HR field. She said, oh, I make their problems disappear. I said, as far as I know, that's a very good message. You make people's problems disappear. And then you would have a narrative that would support that. Remember, the message is yours. It's the narrative that creates that this is where I was, this is how I overcame something, and this is where I am now, right? There's like a story there. It's a narrative, but it's targeted towards this message. Narrative supports the message. If something is not supporting the message, that should not be part of the narrative. So I just want to make it clear. And if you do that, then the person, it's making sense to them. Wow. Like, I gave you my narrative. I couldn't communicate, and now I got a book. So there is a big, big improvement, right? For somebody who cannot communicate when he started, now I have a book out. That's impressive. I think that's pretty impressive, right? That's pretty impressive. That kind of narrative, would people say, like, wow, really? Now I know, I get it. Now it's making sense. It's sense making. You're making sense. That's what people want you to do. I hope this is clear, because a message and narrative are extremely important in just about anything. And you'd be surprised how often people do not have this. They don't have a message and they don't have a narrative. And not to dwell into politics, I think Biden had a good message and a narrative. Biden had a good message and a narrative, and it resonated. When you win, suddenly people like your message and narrative won out over somebody else. So if you look at the politics of it, Joe Biden had a very good message and a narrative. He wanted to save the soul of America, and he was explaining why that was the case. And, whether you agree or not, that made sense to a lot of people. He got 76 million votes. It made a lot of sense to, he got 5 million more votes than President Trump. So you got to give it to him. That message and narrative worked. Message and narrative works. And a lot of times people don't focus on that. Okay, so that part we did was, who are you? The message and narrative takes care of that. You got to have it. If you don't have it, it's going to be hard. So now we get to the next part, what you have. You have skills and you know how to solve problems with the skills that you have. That's what you have. So in my case, I'm trying to solve a problem for you, right? The kind of skills that I have is I know how to organize this presentation. Okay, I put like a lot of work into this. I can give a talk on Zoom. I guess that's a skill. I'm a Zoom presenter, I guess a Zoom speaker. I guess that's a skill, that's a new skill. The second is that I know enough about, so there's some skills that I'm bringing into this, right? That you're seeing, that I can give a Zoom presentation in front of, I don't know, dozens, maybe close to 100 people. I can also organize a presentation like this, talk about a topic that's fairly complex. So I'm trying to solve a problem with the skills that I have. And it's a complex problem on how do you get people to do something, right, that'll help them. So here's what I want to talk about, skills. Now, skills, this is a kind of busy slide, and I just didn't want too many slides. So I just put everything in one slide. I don't like to flip too many slides. So what skills make you money, right? You got to rethink skills. There's access, bridge, and money. That's how I look at it. So when I'm coaching, that's my money skill. When I coach, that's how I get paid. That's how I get paid. That's my money skill. If I give a talk, I can make money from giving a talk. If somebody invites me to give a talk, I can make money from that. In my case, I put coaching. That's my money skills, right? And yours could be either coding, could be accounting, could be marketing, could be sales, could be, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where you make money. But that skill is constantly changing, right? Money skills is going to be changing. These two skills at the top, bridge skills and access skills, do not change. So you do need to develop that. Bridge skills is once you get access, now you got to bridge it. Means I consider that sales. And that's how you get to develop. That's where you get to make money, right? So in my case, access skills are very important. And how do you get access? Access could be from just about anything that gives you access to people. Could be some volunteer, could be just recently we finished a political campaign. You could have been a volunteer either on the Democratic side or the Republican side. That gives you certain amount of access, right? You get access when you join a political organization. And once you have access, they will connect you to somebody and say, hey, I know this person, you ought to talk to him. Boom, you got the name. Now you got to sell him. If you sell him, you get to make money. It's that simple, right? So find out who gives you access. Now, here's the thing. Let's say none of you may be my client, right? None of you may be my client. Let's say if none of you are my client, that's fine. But you are in a position to recommend me to somebody else that could use my service, right? That's access. Because I'm giving you this, I got access. You may not be my client, but because you are seeing me and seeing such a great job that I'm doing here, you're going to say, you know, you got to talk to this guy, Jay. He gave this presentation, and here, watch it, and you should contact him. And I do get clients like that, by the way, okay? I do get clients like that. And suddenly I get a call or an email. Hey, I heard about you from my friend, and he said I ought to talk to you. Oh, really? Yeah, okay, let's talk. Suddenly, I now have to sell him. Hey, let's work it out. Let's work something out. And boom, next thing I know, I got myself a coaching client. That's how it works. That's exactly what you have to do, right? So find out who's your access. Don't ask them like, hey, man, you got a job. Don't ever ask for a job. They're going to give you advice. Ask for advice, they'll give you a job, right? So I said, hey, here, give them the talking points. Like, here are 3 things that I do. And if you know anybody out there that I want to talk to them, make them get you to talk somebody. Get them to get you to talk somebody because they know people. Make them be your marketing person. Give them talking points. Just don't say, hey, I'm a writer, I'm a speaker. Hey, you know how you can help me? If you come across somebody out there, ask them if they know anybody that could use somebody that whatever background that you have. And here are the three things you need to know about. Tell them that. And then if you find out qualified, give them the qualifying points. Get them saying, hey, Jay, I got a hot one. Talk to this person. And next thing you know is you now got the bridge skills. You start to communicate. You try to uh, show them what you're made out of, sales skills. And the next thing you know is you could end up with a job. This is a skill, by the way. This is a skills. There are skills here. We all think just because you know something technical, that's the skill. That's not enough anymore. You need these two skills also, access skills and bridge skills, right? Without those, it's very hard. I mean, these are fixed. You've got to develop these. This takes a long time to develop. I mean, some of you probably already have access. Like my son, he just entered college and he wanted to join the band, but he couldn't because of COVID. So I said, don't give up on trumpet. He plays trumpet. I said, you know, with trumpet, you can join a band and that gives you access. And who knows, maybe it'll help him find a girl. You know, women like, it might help him meet, you know, other people, can get him a job or maybe a wife. I don't know. I said, look, if you want to get a job, that trumpet will help you get not only a job, but you might find a girlfriend. I said, a trumpet can help you not only get a job, but can also help you find a girlfriend. There you go. Don't give up trumpet. I don't know if he's listening to me, you know, but anyway. I was reading this article by Tom Friedman, and he had this, one of the person he was talking to was this guy, Ravi Kumar he was CEO of Infosys. And he said that half-life of skills is steadily shrinking. So that means that this money skills, you're going to have to constantly find, that's where that just-in-time learning thing that I mentioned comes into play. You have to find new skills and that's something given. There's nothing you can do about that. If you want to get a good high paying job, there is no other way around it. As this woman who wrote this book, Heather Long, says, work, learn, work, learn, work, learn. That's how you keep getting good high paying job. So the most coveted skill for 2020, and since 2020 is not over, but I'm sure it's going to be for 2020 and beyond, is complex problem solving. This is according to the World Economic Forum. And this is needed for individual, like if you're working in a department for project, or company-wide problem solving. That's what companies hire you. And one time I was listening to a podcast, and Carly Fiorina was a guest. And when the guest asked her, said, when did you know that you were going to become the CEO? And she said, I never really went out to become a CEO. I said, I had a philosophy that, and I think she was like the first woman to be the CEO of a Fortune, of a Dow, a Fortune 20 company, a Fortune 20 company. So that's very tremendous accomplishment for Carly Fiorina. And she said, I always approached my career to solve problems. And if you solve problems, then you got more responsibility, appropriate title, and financially. But he said the key thing was always looking to solve problems. That if you solve problems, the rest of things took care of itself. And that's how she became a CEO, because she was at Lucent, was one of the most profitable business unit that she was working for, and she was recruited to be the CEO of HP. But what about the future? Future may not be necessarily for problem solving. It would be problem finding. And that means you're going to have to be entrepreneurial. You're going to have a lot of curiosity. You got to be curiosity driven. You need to know how to team up with people, solve the problem, find the problem, and teaming is going to become very important. And it's also about asking questions, not answers. Today you can get answers from Siri, Google, Quora, answers are not that important. Answers are all on YouTube. I can get answers on YouTube when I wanted to fix, if I want to fix anything, I can get answers on YouTube. Like right now, I'm trying to get a lock fixed, and suddenly I go on YouTube, they show it. I'm not going to do it, but I know now a lot about it. Even I can get a lot of information answered on Craigslist. I just put on ad, and suddenly these guys are telling me how to do things. So answers is not the key anymore. Questions. Ask good questions. Okay, so this is the slide that I want to spend a little bit of time on, because I think that if you want to really impress somebody, you're going to have to go deep with a particular area. So let's say if it's problem solving. And what I'm doing here is there are like level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, level 6, level 7, right? I'm going across 7 levels here in talking about problem solving. And this is going to be like a conversation you're having. And I'm going to try to do this fast, but depending on when you're interviewing, you may have to take time and walk them through it so it starts making sense. Because this is where you're showing that all that years of experience is going to now get condensed into this particular slide. How do you do it? You're going to talk about, remember that one slide where I showed you your experience, just-in-time learning, and the growth outlook, growth mindset? That all comes into play right here. So level 1 is very simple, right? You make a bold statement. It's a bold statement, like problem solving is critical for company's success. Problem solving, that's what it is. Companies need people who can solve problems, either individually, departmentally, or organizationally, enterprise-wide. And then you have to, okay, so now, all right, nobody's going to argue with you on that. That's true. So now you're going to have to show the methodology. And this methodology is not mine. I picked it up from reading an article, and it's a 4S methodology where you state the problem. So that's problem definition. Remember, we talk about problem definition. Then you have to structure the problem. Like, did you understand the problem? Did you get to the root of the problem? Then you have to come up with solutions. Now, here's the thing that you're probably, in any company, you will find that people who are at the low level, low level, mid level, maybe even senior level, they all seem to know the problem. They all have some solutions, but where they fall short is the last one. They can't sell it. Everybody in the company knows the problem. Everybody knows the root of the problem. They all know the solutions, but nobody knows how to sell the solution. Well, if you can't sell the solution, it will not be adopted. That's the risk. Nobody wants to take the risk and go and take it up the flagpole and go to the next level, next level, next level. And that sometimes may not be your fault. It could be cultural. And if it's cultural, then you can't solve problems. But you got to know how to sell the solution. I mean, some of these companies that are successful, they make it easier for people to not only come up with that, but make it so that they know how to sell it. They know how to sell the solution. And if you don't know how to sell the solution, then they're not even going to be looking for problems. Like, I came up with so many, like I always talk to people, I know how this problem is. You always talk to people and they all seem to know what the problem is. They all seem to know what the root of the problem is. And they all have all kinds of solutions. But then, like, what did you do about it? Well, we got a culture here. It's like, I can't go to him. They don't take me seriously and all that. Well, then figure it out. Okay. So most people will end it at level 2. Okay. Level 2 is where all problems die. But there are challenges here. Sometimes the problem may require reframing. Are you solving the right problem? Optimally? Sometimes the problem, like, you're not getting a good job. Okay. So you think the problem is your age. Let's say some people think it's the age. I had a problem. So when I got laid off 10 years ago, I thought, oh, you know what? I needed more education. I needed a certificate. So I spent $6,000 or so and so. I spent a lot of money, and I got myself the PMP. I had to take an exam, that 4-hour exam that many of you might have taken, 4-hour test that you have to take, 4-hour exam test you have to take, and you get your certificate, right? It didn't help me get a job. So you have to reframe it. Like, what, is it the certificate that's going to get your job, or what is it? So sometimes you got to reframe it. Reframing will get you to the essence on what exactly, is there any kind of workarounds? Because sometimes the problem you have may not be the solution to the problem may not be the right solution. Maybe you not understood the problem. You have to reframe the problem before you work out the solution. You may have to do some prototyping, and I'll go into that. And another key is that don't jump to solutions. That's what commonly happens. Like, oh, I got a problem, let me jump to solutions. No, spend some time on problem. Look at it from all angles. Reframe it if you have to. Then come up with the solutions, and then if you can sell it. So that's the two challenges that most people face. Then in your conversations, if the person's saying, so let me just give you a simple example. In my case, I had to solve a problem where my house, my chimney started separating from the house. Now that was not that simple a problem. My initial thing was like, I'll just get a contractor and they'll just figure everything out. And then I found out the contractors were useless. I had to really get to the bottom of this, because there were several problems that I'm not going to go into it. You know, you have a water heater and it's how it's venting and all that. So I had to basically get a grip of the problem. And once I got it, and now it's everything worked out, and it's a solution that I felt good. You know, I mean, my wife sort of is my boss. She doesn't care. She just says, I want the house to look good and I want everything to work. Okay. So my wife is like kind of like my boss here. Like, she's the boss, right? She's the CEO. I had to sell her the solution. I said, look, we're going to have to get a new water heater. We're going to have to get, we're going to have to demo the chimney, demolish the chimney, and then we have to completely replace a siding that matches as close to what we already have. And she said, well, I don't care, but it better look good and it better be working. So that's it. And I said, well, but it is going to cost us probably like $6,000, $7,000. And she was like, what? I said, yes, there's no other way to do it. And so here in this case, my boss was my wife. Then you got to come up with a work-related example, something that you did at work. And in my case, it was how we went from a dysfunctional team to a highly functional team when I was working at Bell Labs. So that would be the work-related example that I would give. Then you have to get into the discovery mode at the end. Like, okay, so now you've gone through your experience. You've talked about how you have to learn quickly. In my case, the chimney thing. And the third thing is the growth outlook, right? That comes at the end. Discovery is like, okay, I've talked a lot now. How do you do it? What do you think? And that's where the company will start telling you, well, here's how we do it. Oh, great. So now you know how I do it. I know how you do it. Why don't we work together and solve the problem that's at hand right now? Now, guess what? If you get to that level 7, you're not just collaborating. You're actually doing the job. That's what you're doing. And if you're doing the job, guess who they're going to hire? They're going to hire you. And guess who they're going to hire? Because what you're demonstrating here by doing this is passion, your ability, your curiosity, and teaming. You're going to get the job. This is a very important slide, by the way, the most important slide. If you can have this type of discussion with problem solving, customer experience, relationship building, and take them through different levels. I call it level. You may have a stage. Maybe you can call it stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, okay? Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then you will be impressive. This is what they're looking for. This is what this is what makes it high stakes, that if you can show them how to do this in an interview, they'll believe you. That brings to the last thing, packaging. Now, packaging is very important. Packaging means that you're not making the other person think too hard. So like if you got a message and you have a narrative, you know specific skills and what kind of problems you're solving. Packaging means that these have to be very well put together, but they have to be consistent right from the beginning till the end. That's what packaging is. Because if you change anything, then you're going to confuse people. Now, I'll give you an example, a simple example on how packaging really works. Now, don't think I'm cheap here, but one time my wife told me to get tomatoes from ShopRite. So I went to ShopRite and I was watching a basketball game, and it was getting really interesting. But my wife was cooking something, and when your wife is cooking something and she needs it, you got to go and get it. So I said, look, can it wait? And she said, no, it cannot. Okay. So I didn't like it, but hey, what can I do? I, it's not worth, basketball you can catch on ESPN. Who big this? So I went to, so I was just gonna get in there and get out quickly, right? So I picked up these nice tomatoes, really nicely packaged. You know, those plastic wrap around it, and you look at them, those tomatoes look so nice and red. Like, oh man, they are perfect. Then I realized, wait a second, I didn't even look at the price. So I went back and looked at the price, and it was like $3.99. Like, whoa, not paying dollar per tomato. I like tomatoes, but dollar per tomato. I said, there's got to be something else that's got to be cheaper than that. So I looked at it. There were tomatoes like in the next to it. There were these tomatoes in vine, and if you see those are usually cheap, like $1.49 or something. And I only needed 4, so I just took that. But it was work. Suddenly I had to rip one of those plastic bags that you can never open. I got to go. Finally, I opened it, and I put 4 tomatoes in there. Brought it home. Said, "Honey, look, I brought 4 wonder nice tomatoes." And she's like, "Thanks." It didn't matter to her whether they were packaged or not. I brought her 4 tomatoes, and she was happy. And I'm like, I just saved money, and I felt so good. I didn't want to tell her like, hey, I just saved so much money. I didn't want her to think that I was so cheap. But anyway, the point is that packaging works. I didn't want her to think that I was so cheap. She doesn't know. I hope she doesn't watch this because she'll think like I'm so cheap. But just pointing out that those packaged tomatoes looked good, but she didn't seem to care whether I took it out of that next to it in vine and took 4 tomatoes out and put it in this bag. Okay, so in the packaging, there are 4 moments, I call it, right? And this is a marketing concept that I've taken from, I think Procter & Gamble and Google came up with this. So there's a 0 moment, first moment, second moment, and ultimate moment, right? 0 moment is when you send out a resume. And I always think of resume today, since we have LinkedIn and all that, a resume shouldn't be 1 page. If they want more, they should refer to your LinkedIn, okay? Because nobody's even reading resumes. That's what I hear. So 1 page, boom. What is it that, why, and people ask me, Jay, what's a good resume? And I said, I don't know. Any resume that gets you people to call you is a good resume. Otherwise, what's the point of a resume? A resume is supposed to get you calls. So I like to think of a 1-page resume as like a sales letter. You're basically selling yourself. And what you're selling is like, hey, here's what I have. Here's my message. Here's my narrative. Here are my skills. Here's the problems that I've solved, maybe 1 or 2 problems. You got to call me now. Leave your number there. Leave your email there. That's it. If that doesn't generate calls, and tell them, if you want to know more, guess what? I have my LinkedIn page. You can go and look at all the places, wonderful places that I work. That's what I would do. That's what the way I would do it. I wouldn't write. I see people have 3-page resumes, and I'm like, and the fonts are so slow. I'm like, dude, this is like, nobody's gonna read this. You're making people think like that. It looks like an abstract, it looks like reading an abstract, like you read from a college, like a curriculum vitae, like that. What is this? So then you get a call, let's say, from a recruiter, and suddenly you're all excited. Like you are like, I want to find out about this job. I want to do. No, a recruiter is only going to do one thing. I got a person here who really is a hot one. Somebody that I should pass to the manager. Go through your message, go through your narrative. If you have to at a high level, go through your skills. Maybe you can practice here's the problems that I solve. Just practice that, but at a lesser extent, not in detail. And just say, hey, the recruiter is only going to help you, and tell them, what does the manager need? What is it going to take for you to get the manager to get on the phone with me? That's what a recruiter is there for. If a recruiter can do that, then you have just got past that first moment. That's what a recruiter does. But you need to find out how you're going to do well on this one. So you need to find out about the manager. If you're interested, then you need to change some words around, because at this point you may have to refine your resume based on what the recruiter's saying, based on what the recruiter information you get. Don't talk to the manager till you have gotten more information about the manager from the recruiter. But the recruiter says, yes, the manager likes you and would like to talk to you. And don't let the recruiter send the resume that got, if they're saying, that what do I need to change that'll get the manager? And then if the recruiter says, these are the things that you need to do. If the recruiter is not helping you get to the manager, recruiter doesn't care, okay? Recruiter is not testing you. If the recruiter says, here's what the manager needs, tell them, don't send the resume I sent you. I'm going to send you a new one. And then let that go to the manager. Okay, so let the recruiter help you refine your resume. That's what I would use the recruiter. The resume you have, if that's not resonating for some reason, then tell him or her, don't send that resume. What is it, the key things that he's looking for? I can make it work, because if I'm not saying it right, then it's not going to resonate. What do you think? It should still be one page, and then saying, like, is the one page going to work with him, or he wants detail? So then just use that one page and say, if you want detail, I'll send a detailed one as an addendum. Okay. And again, when you talk to the manager on the phone, the purpose of a manager is you're going to go through the same thing: message, narrative, problem solving that is specific to this job. And the purpose of this call at this manager is to eventually get to a face-to-face or talk to more people, a more decision maker. Right now, it's going to be Zoom calls so that they can make a decision. Now, here's the thing. This is what I'm finding. And this is what I'm finding from my coaching. Each person that you're interviewing with, you're going to have to spend quite a bit of time knowing what you don't just get on the call and just talk to them, because companies, managers, what they do is they will you'll go through an informal process where they'll make you talk to people, and if they like you, then you'll go through a formal process. No manager is going to put you in front of people who are part of the decision making. That'll only happen once you go through informals. So the informals, what I found is they're going to be talking more. With formals, you're going to be talking more. So if you get to so let's say you have a hiring manager, it could be a person who's going to be hired, it could be an executive. They're hiring you. In the beginning, they're going to be informal. So they'll make you talk to people that they know, that they trust. And these are the people who are going to kind of, this is what I've seen recently. They're just trying to get a feel for what you are, their personality, how much you know. They're not going to really pry into your background and such. They're just there to just see what you're like talking to. These people, when they get to the formal, these are stakeholders. They're going to really nail you. And the manager is not going to put you in front of people who are part of the decision-making process until you have gone through the informals. So keep that in mind, that there is the things now that I'm noticing is there's an informal and formal. And you know what, even if it is in your interest to have more informals before you get to the formals, because you don't want to get into the formal and not know these people well. Now, this informal and formal I'm noticing is with an internal candidate, okay, with an internal. External, it's going to be hard. So you really have to remember, I'm pointing it out that this is something that you have to know before you get that. And what packaging here does is that if you have that message and that you're not making the interviewers think too hard, and they all have the same story, because when they're talking to each other, they will basically say, like, you know, so what do you like? Yeah, he really knows how to solve a customer experience problem. So what did you think? Oh yeah, he's got this amazing narrative. He really knows how to, he likes to solve provide excellent customer experience. I think he's the guy. That message, they're all going to be talking to each other. They'll all be sending emails or text messages and etc. Like, you know, that message goes right away before you're done. Ask, and they better be consistent. So if you're not packaged well and something else comes up, you're going to confuse them. That's why it's very important now with the technology that's out there. You got to be well packaged, because if you're not well packaged, you're going to confuse them. So these are the 3 questions you must ask during the interview, right? Now, sometimes they will tell you, and you need to know why they're hiring. It sounds kind of stupid, right? Like, why hiring? there, it's not to really saying why hiring. Like the problem has to be really big that they need to hire a person. So there has to be something strategic, because if they're hiring you as a permanent, I consider those as a strategic position. That means they're going to invest in you. There's an investment that's being made. You're investing your career, they're investing money, because if you don't work out, they could lose market share. They could lose a lot of money if you don't work out. So like, why they got to the point where they have to hire? What is the strategy behind it? What is the strategic intent here? What is the strategic intent that they're that they have here? Okay, so that is going to be very important. The strategy is going to be very important. What is the strategic intent? Okay, why hire now? What's going on? What's going on? And why would they want to hire you? Now, this is a very interesting question. If you've done a good job, they should be able to give you back what you have said. Like, we're looking for somebody who really knows how to provide excellent customer experience, and also a person who has the skills and who knows how to solve these complex problems. If it sounds like they're telling you what you've just told them, boom, you're resonating. Okay, so those are the, and okay, so now this question gets asked, right? People always have difficulty. Like, so why do you want this job? Okay, so tell me about yourself. When they ask you this, they're not asking you, they're asking you how you're going to help them make money. Okay, that's what they're really asking you. So tell me about yourself. They don't want to know about you. They want to know about how are you going to help me make money? And I've given you the answer, how you can structure your answer. You know what? I deliver excellent customer experience. You provide a narrative of how you became good at delivering excellent customer experience. You say, here's the reason I can do this. Here are the skills that I bring to it, and these are the complex problem. And let me give you one example of how I do it. And then you end it with saying, I'm looking forward to have discuss this in more detail, and learn how you do that, how you provide excellent customer. What your views, what your thoughts are on providing, what your thoughts are on providing on providing on how you provide excellent customer experience. So you kind of got a framework on how to, you got to nail this. This is a question that should be asked. And I would ask every person that I do mock interview with, I always ask them, tell me about yourself. And most people never get this right, the way I like to see it. They're like telling me things that's irrelevant. All I want to know is, how am I going to make money? Show me the money. You got to help the interviewers help you get the jobs. That means you got to tell them you understand the job. Validate it. Do you think I understand the job? Yes. Boom. You got to tell them you can do the job. If they don't think you can do the job, the way keyword here is the job, then tell them you want the job. A lot of times people never tell them they want the job. Tell them I'm excited to get started. You got to be like Simba, right? I can't wait to become king or something, right? You got to be like Simba. You got to get into your Simba mode, right? Simba, I just can't wait to get started, right? You got to get into your Simba mode here. People been watching Lion King, but when they go for a job interview, they don't act like Simba. They don't want to become king. They don't want the job. Say, I can't wait to get started, You got to say that. Because if you don't say that, they think like, oh, you know, there are too many candidates. I like the guy who really wants the job. Let me tell you, you're dealing with a lot of competition now. Simba's going to get the job. If you're Simba, you're going to get the job, okay? You got to be the Simba. Simba gets the job. All right, so here's another little technique that I'm going to give you. So word cloud your job strategy and execution. So what does this mean? So if I had to, like right now, go for a cold interview, these are the keywords that I would focus on. Customers, right? Growth, learning, collaboration, communication. That's it, 5. So in my networking example that I gave you, I guide people thrive in a high stakes, on a high stakes stage, in a high stakes stage, right? Guide people thrive in a high stakes stage, on a high stakes stage. So thrive means they have to succeed. High stakes means they could win or lose, and stage could be anything. These are the keywords that I have to really focus on. Thrive, 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 high stakes, stage, right? So I could just say guide people thrive in a high stakes stage. So it gives me, so this would be my networking example. Like you got to have these 3 keywords. So find out what your networking, that your tagline is. Like mine is, I help people guide, thrive in a high stakes stage. So this was an example of an interview. So I just recently was coaching, and the key phrase that we got from the job description was this word: sales effectiveness. Okay. So I said there are 3 key words that you're going to have to really hammer: growth, collaboration, and learning. And then I said, if you want to, you can talk about communication and speed. But I said, if you have to nail it down to 5, those are the 5. If it turns out that there are too many, then just focus on this 3. But during the call, so that's like the pregame, right? You have the pregame, like, you know, when Mike Tyson says that everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Well, he got kind of punched in the mouth. And when he started saying about speed to revenue, the head of sales suddenly said, you know, I like that, speed to revenue. Can you talk more about that? So you got to know what could happen if you get punched in the mouth. I don't want to say he got punched in the mouth, but suddenly he now has to realize that these words can still apply, but now he has to show how the linkages go from marketing, sales to customer experience. That generates growth, that requires collaboration, that requires learning, that requires communication, and this is how you get speed to revenue. So suddenly, even though because we had prepared for that, he was in a position to do a good job with that when it had to pivot quickly on the call. These are the kind of things that you really have to be ready to do. So this is my concluding slide, and I kind of show this as a poker game, right? That at the end we're all playing this game, and this is called Texas Show 'em, I call it, not hold 'em, because you're not going to hold anything, you're going to show 'em. And you're the winning hand. This is how you have to go into it, the mindset. You're the winning hand, and this is what I call the growth flush. Okay, this is the growth flush. Okay, and these are the questions. Who are you? Ace. That's ace. That's ace of spade. That's the number 1. What do you have? King and queen. You got skills and you got problem solving, ability to solve problems. Why should they care? Well, you understand the job, you can do the job, and you want the job. And there's an 8 of spade here, which means companies are always looking for more. So if you got something more, definitely, and you got to be fun to be around, okay? You got to be fun to be around. So as you can see, this is the growth flush. You lead with the growth flush. What you're doing is you're reducing the growth certainty gap. And this is the game you're playing. Texas Show 'em, okay? I should copyright it. Texas Show 'em. Maybe I'll call it New Jersey Show 'em. I don't know. Doesn't have the same ring to it. Jersey Show 'em. It doesn't have the same ring to it. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. And you're all going to do it. Because you all have access to a phone. And you're going to make a 3-minute video where you're going to talk about your message and your narrative. What are the skills that you have, the problem solving? Now, I can send you something that I developed for one of my clients. I'll change some things around. I'll put my name instead of his name, so you get an idea. But you got to do it, because if you can't say it, like I like that quote from that Miles from Risky Business when he gives this advice to Joel. Remember, he says, what the F, right? What the F, he says. And he said, if you can't say it, you can't do it, right? I like that. If you can't say it, you can't do it. You got to say it first. This is my favorite quote from a movie. Miles from Risky Business, right? You remember the movie Risky Business? I can't believe it. That movie is so old now. If you can't say it, you can't do it. So you refine it, but don't try to make it too perfect. Just do it. And once you do it, you'll feel good. Believe me, once you do it, you're going to feel good. But don't stop there. And then, look, I even created a message you can send to Christine, where you can say, look, hi, Christine. I want to thank you for the Zoom event you scheduled on 11/13, having J.O.'s giving the talk, and just so you can just send it, make some tweaks here and there. Maybe you might say, we would enjoy. Maybe you may say, well, I didn't like it. Don't invite this guy again. Okay, don't do that. So these are my contact information. If you want to get in touch with me if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, if you want to call me, you have my email. This is the main, Vital Group is my main thing. And I'm also on Facebook. So at this point, I am done. And I want to thank you again. And I will now open it up for Q&A.